Are you looking for some alternative medicine options here in the Marion County area? Maybe you're tired of your doctor and you recently found out that you have a genetic mutation like MTHFR or something else similar to it. Debbie has a really great service that she provides to those in the community to help those that have those issues. Also, she helps with hormone replacement therapy for those that are going through aging processes and the change. So I highly recommend you check out this video where we cover a lot of different topics and how she helps her patients, and I hope you find it helpful. All right, Debra, so tell us a little bit about what you do and how you got into it.
I am a family nurse practitioner. I started nursing about 38 years ago, nurse practitioner for about 28 years. And I have spent many, many years helping women regain control of their hormones, understand how their bodies are working, and regain vitality and energy. I'm passionate about helping, being a partner in their care so that they understand and can take my knowledge and our work and go on and do this on their own down the road. I started out mainly because I was experiencing many challenges, adrenal fatigue initially, blood sugar imbalances, and then menopause. So consequently, I spent many years learning about all of these and taking it forward.
Okay, that's awesome. Now, have you always done it here in Ocala, or were you somewhere else before?
I am from Indianapolis and started there. However, my educational advancement generally happened since I've moved to Florida. We've been here about 25 years.
Okay, yeah, that's awesome. So you've been here quite some time. So how long specifically have you had your own practice?
I've had my own practice. We opened December 2012, so this is our anniversary, our 12th anniversary. I'm very proud. I've been a solo practitioner. I now have full practice authority, have my own DEA, basically independent practice. We do primary care, but we also do it in an integrative medicine style. So we're a little bit different than the typical clinic. We take time with you, we interview you, we listen to your health history, and try to figure out the root cause of what's going on and move forward from there.
Okay, so like, so what, I guess that kind of leads me to ask, like, what do women usually come to you with? Like, what, you know, what's their average questions? Like, what's their normal concerns when they come to you?
Okay, so women come to me usually after they've exhausted other resources. They've been told their labs are normal, they're fine, maybe they're depressed, maybe they're just tired, maybe they just need to go exercise more, eat less, and that's not the answer they wanted. And so they come in with fatigue, low energy, low libido, low stamina. They know they need to go to the gym. They just don't have the energy to go to the gym. They're not sleeping. They're irritable. They just don't have they can't really put their finger on what's wrong. And their doctor has said, everything looks great, you're fine. So we do some more exploration and try to get to the reason why they don't feel good and get them to have their energy and their vitality back.
Okay, and so what is normally wrong with them?
Usually it comes down to nutrition, GI microbiome, gut health is a big one, and choices in food, because over the years, like I say, starting 38 years ago, I have seen a big shift in health from when I started to now. I'm just seeing more things that we were taught in school were the outliers, and now they're the normal things I'm seeing. And so I have to blame nutrition and the convenience lifestyle. We're not moving as much. There's a lot of going on, but a lot of digestion, nutrition, absorption, things just aren't absorbing like they do. And your body, being this magnificent organism that it is, should be able to heal itself. And when it gets to the point of you not being able to take in or deliver what it needs, it breaks down and we have symptoms.
Yeah, no, I think even my own self, I have kind of noticed that as I've gotten older. You know, I live like, my parents were kind of in the middle on that when it came to eating. Like, we didn't eat a lot of McDonald's, we didn't eat a lot of junk food, but my parents didn't probably always eat the best things either. So it was kind of like one of those mixed bags where I ate a lot of home cooked meals, but it may have not always been the best or maybe the best option. They ate a lot of rice and beans as a kid, which is okay, but it just, some of it was not okay, and I know that. And I also dealt with a lot of food allergies and things that were hiding underneath the surface that I don't think anybody really could figure out. And now that I'm 26, which is crazy that I'm 26 and I'm experiencing this, but you know, it seems to be a normal thing in my age group. Like they all complain about being depressed or you know, soreness or this, that, or whatever. And I remember getting out of college, and I mean, I didn't eat the best in college. I mean, who does? You're stressed. It's really not the healthiest time that you're in. And I remember getting out of college and like starting to work, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm exhausted. And I'm 22 years old, and coming from a medical background, I'm like, and a lot of holistic, like all of it, I'm like, there is something wrong. And so, you know, it started to be this discovery of like elimination and doing all of that. But there's a lot of people who are older that are coming to you now, and they're like, you know, they've been dealing with these things for years and they didn't even realize it. And then now you've got this whole, I mean, you know, got these people are like, you said, what, like around 45?
My demographic tends to be in their late 40s when everything starts to break down.
Yeah, and they've been doing this forever, and now you've got like this huge mess on your hands. So I know that has to be like a huge stressor. So what exactly do you do that's different from, you know, Joe Blow doctor that says, you know, you're great even though you feel like total crap?
You hit on it exactly. You knew that something was wrong. And I tell people, look at diet of the week when you're at the grocery store. Every week there's a new diet of the week. The underlying theme is almost always there's no packaged, processed, canned sugar, high fructose corn syrup in that week-long diet that you get. So everyone feels great at the end of that week. And then they go back to their routine. So we take it a step further. We look for sensitivities, not just allergies. And that's a lot more difficult to identify on an elimination diet. So sometimes that takes testing. The gut microbiome, years of antibiotics, processed foods, glyphosate in wheat, destroys that microbiome. So we don't have the ability to give ourselves the energy. And it is happening at an earlier age, mainly because of lifestyle and yes, a lot of stress. And I think more people are under more stress now than they were years ago. There's different types of stressors. And so physical, emotional, environmental, I think we have a lot more just general. And we're not taught how to deal with that, to cope with that. You know, so that makes a big impression on your gut.
Yeah, no, I don't know, I just think it's kind of sad that we live in the country that we live in and we have to worry about all these things. You would really think that we would have done better, but I mean, I'm not really going to go into all of those reasons as to why, but it just very much saddens me that we live in a world like that. And that my age group, we really are seeing, like my age group's kind of, I mean, I'm Gen Z, so, and I'm the beginning of it. And it's like kind of trickles down, like my nephew who's 19, he like is always congested, and I'm like, Christopher, you need to cut all this stuff out, kid. Like, he's like, but I don't want to do it. Like, I'm just going to be congested. And I'm like, okay. Like, I wish I would have done that at 19. Like, you know, I wish I would have done those things and just was a little bit more particular.
Simple, but it's not easy, is what I tell people. It's very simple practicality, but to actually do it in today's society, I have a lot of older patients who like to go out and socialize as their fun time, and that involves food and alcohol. And we're trying to educate on what's good and not good in a restaurant, and you can be a high maintenance diner is what I call it. You can go out, but it's going to take some effort. But I don't want you to curtail your social life, but we need to learn how to do it. But it is difficult because the fun stuff tastes good, smells good, it's just not good for you.
And I'll be honest, as somebody who has cut a lot of that out, like the sacrifice, like it's just not worth it anymore. Like it kind of just gets to that point. Maybe your patients may say the same thing too. Maybe not. I could see some older people. My mom's kind of like that. Like she just kind of does what she does. But you know, for me, I'm just like, it's not worth feeling like crap. You know, like if I'm like last night, I went to some like networking event. And I didn't eat the pizza. If I would have, I would be in traction today. If I like, I've been so sick. I could have never done that. But it's just, you know, I got to that point where it just wasn't worth it. Now, and you know, you just kind of have to make that mental sacrifice of like, this is my lifestyle. This is what I have to do. And even if it kind of sucks. I know a little bit earlier ago, you talked about labs and how a lot of doctors typically don't do the right labs. And I know that's true. So what labs do you like recommend? And I know some aren't covered by insurance, if that's my understanding.
Some aren't. We start with the basics that everyone else does, but I interpret it in a little bit different fashion because normal doesn't necessarily mean normal. Like vitamin D has a very wide normal range, And just because you're at the very lowest end of normal doesn't mean that's good. So we interpret it differently. We do a full thyroid panel because it's not just the TSH that everyone gets tested for. It's the entire, how is it converting or is it not converting? Insulin level, there's something called a HOMA-IR, which will tell you how much of a risk do you have for developing diabetes, insulin resistance. So that's there. And then hormones, the basic hormones we'll do by blood. If you're being treated with anything topical, I do saliva hormone practice. That's not covered by traditional insurance. It is covered by Medicare, believe it or not. But to start out with, we'll do blood work, and most of that's covered.
Yeah, most of the blood work stuff is. It's just like making sure you order the right labs. And I know I've even heard some people, like, the doctors won't order those labs. And it's probably because they're not getting the money back off the other end. It's always been my understanding.
There's no money on the other end. What it is time talking about it. So if it's a little bit out of range, then they have to talk about what that means. And then maybe they need to treat it. Whereas I'm sorry to say, but insurance world, you have about a 10 to 15 minute time to discuss something. And if you have something that you're trying to interpret, you want to make it as simple as possible and not go into lifestyle medicine. Most corporate medical offices are not even really allowed to discuss integrative therapies. It takes too much time. It's not what you were taught in school. Even though it may help you more, it's not the typical. So it's more of a corporate type thing anymore too. And I don't go by corporate rules.
Yeah, no, I mean, I know insurance plays a big role into all of that. And I know the insurance it's pretty nasty. Like, I've listened to several podcasts on some people that have talked about that in the insurance world. And I kind of know that anyway, just from being in this short amount of time I was in and around healthcare. My mom was a social worker for over 20 years, so I kind of got to see that perspective. And my grandmother had a lot of illnesses too, so I was kind of around healthcare, the insurance, just all of that. And it's all just kind of a mess. Modern medicine is just, we need some renovation to be done, that's for sure. But I think people that offer services like yourself are offering a different perspective, and I think people want that hands-on thing. Like, you know, that 15, 30-minute care is just not
It is wanting to be heard.
Yes.
And getting the feedback. And it's amazing what you hear in that second 15, 20 minutes that you're with someone, that something comes out and it's like, oh, you didn't tell me you were doing that, or you didn't tell me you were feeling that, because it wasn't in the standard questions. It's in the, let's talk about your lifestyle. Let's talk about what's not going right. And I do a timeline, and for my new patients, start from birth to current. Tell me everything, every significant life event, illness, move, divorce, death in the family, and then tell me when your symptoms started. And let's figure out if there's something that's playing into that. Food allergies only develop as an adult from leaky gut. They don't develop for any other reason. So sensitivities, allergies, when did all that stuff happen?
Yeah, no, I think that's true, and I think with my age group, it's happening even somewhat younger. Because I mean, I think I've always had most of these sensitivities. It's just now that I'm 26, I know, and I also cut everything out. So I was like, you know, so then my body's like, oh, we really don't like this, and I really can tell the difference. You know, when you walk around kind of like this zombie, I don't know what else to really call it, like this unwell zombie, you don't notice all of the small things that are affecting you and the allergy. And it's my understanding that it takes time for that allergy to perform into something that's extreme.
Most definitely. I've had numerous stories of people telling me things that their life has changed. Their brain fog lifts, they get better. I had a couple who had adopted 2 boys, young boys with severe issues, autistic issues, and acting out behaviors. They were homeschooling and totally revamped the diet, and both kids came off their medicine. So we know that these kids in school that are struggling, I wish we could revamp the school diet too.
Yeah, I think my wife's a school teacher, so I think giving kids chicken nuggets and biscuits and, you know, like a roll in the morning is probably not the best thing that we could be doing. I don't know. It is hard to feed, coming from like a dietetics background, as much as we always want to do better, and it's always been the goal. It is really hard to feed, like her school has 650 students, which is smaller compared to most. It's really hard to feed that many people well. Like, I hate to be like that. I think, again, it comes back to, like, feeding at home. And I talked to a dietitian. I talked to Devin more recently, and we kind of had that conversation that we've really got to figure out how we can do it at home. And, our kids have their lunch packed because it's less processed. It's better. Even if you're giving your kid a sandwich, it is still going to be better than the junk they get at school, because it's really terrible.
Yes. And then they toss it and go get stuff off the little cart. And so, yes, I think it does begin at home. And I'm hoping that my 40-year-olds that are coming in, we're educating their kids and helping the next generation come up, and the grandkids of the older people. It does trickle down.
It does. And I think my age group, we're starting to, because we're feeling the effects earlier. And so we're kind of like, whoa, wait, we got some issues going on here across the board. Like, even I was like talking to my mom about, and I'm not like a super big tree hugger, like I'm just not that person, but I feel like the way we live our life in America is very, like, it's not sustainable. Like, it just doesn't make sense. Like, we waste way too much. We do whatever too much. Like, when you go to Goodwill and the woman says, I put 4,000 pieces of clothing out on the racks a day. 4,000 like pieces of clothing. That's how many they sift through in a day, typically, and are put out for people to buy. Like, it just like that just like kind of like really did a weird realization to me in like the world that we live in.
Most
like,
definitely.
It's just crazy. But that trickle down effect, I am hoping that my age group kind of starts it. I remember being a kid and being homeschooled, and there was like these people that we homeschooled with, and they were probably like the pioneers of the whole like, they were the crunchy people. They really weren't, but that's just what they were called. People were, it was kind of extreme, and they were the ones like kicking all the corn syrup out. They were the ones like, doing all the composting and the this and the that, and like doing all the organic. They were like those people, and I think they really influenced me, and they definitely encouraged me to, as I'm an adult, I think about them and I'm like, they were killing it back then. Like, I was a kid, 20 years ago, they were on it. They knew what they were doing, and I'm happy. I'm hoping my age group, we kind of just keep that going. And people like you, those alternative, you talked about like integrative medicine. Now, what does that look like for you? Like, how does that pair with what you do?
I do both.
Okay.
So I have my Medicare population, which generally has traditional medications, which we continue or we start as needed. But if you have high blood pressure, if you have diabetes, why do you have it? Perhaps we can work on the root cause and lessen the need on medication. And a lot of people are coming to me for that reason. They don't like the idea. When I first started, I was taught to start a medicine, come back in 3 to 4 months. If it's working, awesome. If it's not working, you either increase it or change it. And that's how I was trained. And that's what people don't want. So the fact that they keep getting more and more, they're like, something's not right here. So we work on trying to keep that minimal. Every medicine has an effect and a side effect, as do supplements. I view, as did my teacher, supplements are supplemental, they're not permanent. And they should never be a whole sack full or a whole cabinet full of supplements. Otherwise, what are we doing? We're just changing medications and the supplements. So we work on that, and we focus on the whole lifestyle, the nutrition, the sleep, the activity, bowel movements, hydration. There's just so much to it that is never presented in a traditional format at a traditional clinic.
No, I think that's true, and we always are like putting a Band-Aid on what the actual problem is. But I know you mentioned talking about like not replacing supplements, medications with supplements, but I know like our food is not as nutritious. So what do you think about that? Like, I me myself, I'm like, well, I feel like I should be supplementing more than I am because I know the food's just not up to par, even if I'm eating well.
It depends on what you're eating. If your diet is, like if you're in my younger group and you just have kids in sports and life is just that way, then you probably do need some supplements. And while we're trying to revamp everything, we do supplement because you're needing vitamin D, B12, some of the other Bs, everything's needed to make energy. And as you adopt that better lifestyle and we have better gut microbiome, we perhaps can reduce some of that need for supplements. But in the meantime, if you have the traditional American lifestyle, you're probably going to need some supplements. We just try to minimize that. Some of our testing will also do testing for antioxidant need, B vitamin need, nutritional need. So I have a fair number of those, and that one's covered by Medicare too, which is awesome. So this older population, what do you really need? You know, they've been reading all these flyers that come in the mail, and you need this, and they start purchasing everything, and we determine whether or not they really need it.
Yeah, no, I think that's true, and it's kind of pushed a lot across the board. I think making sure you have the right supplements, maybe getting a methylated supplement if that is needed for you. That kind of leads me into where you talked about, you know, really finding the root cause. There's a bunch of different things, a lot of speculation as to what's really causing like hormone issues, what is causing like you to not have nutritional, it kind of really those nutritional, all these vitamins that you're talking about really are the root cause in a lot of ways for like hormone therapy and why people end up needing them. But do you think DNA is really playing a role in that? Because I kind of think so, yes, but I don't know if you think that.
I definitely do. Not sure if everyone's familiar with MTHFR, which is for B12 and folate, homocysteine. There are a number of people that come through with, we test homocysteine levels, which is going to be a cardiovascular risk factor, and their B12 and their folate are off the chart. So apparently that's not the cause. So then we have a supplement that helps you methylate and shift. Of those people with the MTHFR, a fair number of females have what we call a COMT gene. That will unfortunately impact how well you metabolize and eliminate estrogen. And we're having a ton of breast cancers and uterine cancer, ovarian cancer. And I'm finding that I read the mammogram a little bit differently than a traditional, your normal see you next year. If there's some wording in there that alerts me, we do the saliva test looking for estrogen metabolites, and if it's elevated, you're one of those people that's storing it, and it's not going to happen young, but down the road you're probably going to have complications. And you're also the person that probably didn't do well with birth control pills, didn't like them, you had headaches, you just didn't like them, whereas your friend thought they were great. In menopause, there's a fair number of women coming to me not liking the hormones. And the reason for that is usually that they're storing it, and it's a bad thing for them. But that is genetic. And we need to search for that in order to know if you're that person that's going to have high risk. I'm certainly not going to use hormones with you. We're going to find supplements or herbal products that will help you deal with the side effects of menopause and get you through that. Adrenal support to help you get through menopause. There are alternatives depending on your risk factors, but I certainly take all of that into consideration. There's a lot of people out there with these things that don't know it.
Yeah, no, I think it's 100% true. I know it's a couple years ago, it was really looked like mumbo jumbo, like not a real thing, not, you know, whatever. And I think now we're starting to see a shift more and more. Because I think everybody's decided, okay, well, modern medicine isn't helping me, and whatever the modern people are telling me isn't quite right. So I've been getting to do my own research, and I'm that person anyway, because I was kind of raised to be that way. I had chronic eczema, I had I was allergic to every pollen bush known to man. Like, I was a hot disaster. And so, I went to an acupuncturist, and Dr. Rusty, I think she's still in practice in DeLand. That woman is super old, but an awesome, another pioneer, yes. Awesome person. I love Dr. Rusty. And her name's actually Debra Gaffney, but she goes by Rusty because her hair is red. So I know it's Dr. Rusty. But nonetheless, I'm very skeptical, and I'm always like looking at the root cause. And with I really love science too. So the combination for me, I guess any doctor would probably really hate me, because I'd be like, let's do more research on this. They would hate me. But on the other hand, I took it upon myself to do 23andMe, and I understand DNA, and I understand like mapping of DNA. So I said, I can find out if I have MTHFR. Like, I can look this up. I'm like, it's on my DNA. So, and just for those that are watching, if you've done 23andMe, you can look up on what, where it is on your DNA, where it sits, what chromosome, type said chromosome in, and it'll tell you, like, you can actually read it, and it'll tell you which one, what you have if you don't. Like I have 1 in 1, so I know I methylate okay-ish. My wife has both. She definitely has the gene, so I know she doesn't methylate very well. I have fast COMT, which I think is more common in men, if I remember right. I may have it backwards, but I think so. And then she has the slow. So we were like very opposite in a lot of ways, which can be kind of complicated for diet. So what do you like recommend for somebody like myself who maybe like spouses maybe don't match? Because I know you said a lot of times you end up with people and they don't match. So how does that work? How do you like navigate that, I guess?
Sometimes I'll employ the use of a dietitian.
Okay.
Because you need to make life doable.
I agree.
We are just in such a busy society that you have to make things livable and doable. So compromise is one thing, but it is when it's dietary, we have to make sure that it's palatable, that you're going to eat it, you want it, you can go out to restaurants together, you can go to parties, and you know how to navigate. But I'll usually employ a dietitian in that case. That's kind of beyond my scope. But bottom line is, with anything, it's got to be something you can live with and enjoy.
Yeah, no, I definitely think that's true. Now I know you talked a little bit about going to restaurants and like being that specific eater. What are like some recommendations, or maybe even somewhere here in Ocala that you find is easiest to accommodate those things? I don't know if there is anything here, but I figured I'd ask because I know you've been here for quite some time.
My phrase is high maintenance diner. Bottom line is you're paying for this meal. You're paying for the service. Most restaurants that are not cookie cutter restaurants, if they're one that you know has fresh food in the back, you can ask for just about anything. Gluten-free is one thing that I would recommend. And then fresh vegetables. I was taught that salads are nice, but salads are more placeholders. We're much better off with a healthy meat without a sauce on it and 2 vegetables at your meal, and ask for the fresh vegetable of the day. And then eat your vegetables first. Believe it or not, that helps with the blood sugar regulation, because then that's going into your bloodstream first, getting digested first, and it has this fibrous bulk to it, so it's going to slow everything down naturally. And then you eat your protein, which also is going to slow. And then if there's a carb, which everyone needs some carbs in their life, we need healthy whole carbs. I don't advocate for a no-carb diet. And then that's last. And by doing that, it slows the absorption of the sugar from the meal. You will feel satisfied longer. Your blood sugar spike will be much lower, and hence the insulin spike will be much lower. Insulin is our bad guy, not sugar, or not glucose as much. So by doing that, you can still go out to eat. You can still have some kind of a whole grain pasta if you so desire. But the 2 vegetables are almost the key factor, and eating in that order has really helped a lot of my people do things without extra medicine, back off on the medicine by eating in the proper fashion and order.
I know, it was very interesting. I was watching the Diary of a CEO, and he had on, I can't remember what her name is, but I think she's like French or something, and she's a specialist, and that's her whole thing. So she's like a biochemist who like is really obsessed with like insulin and glucose responses and all of that. So like she wrote a book about like, and she's like, I don't even recommend, like I recommend that if you have really big issues to go to a doctor, but by like implementing these couple things, like it really does help, and that is definitely one of them. And I kind of already eat like that anyway. I think having a diet, like, I don't know, I mean, I spent 4 years nothing but dietetics, nothing but food and health and wellness, and like I lived and breathed and ate that. Like that's all I did. I mean, I learned more about glucose than I ever wanted to. Like, okay, I was so tired of diabetes by the end of my degree. I was like, I don't even know if I want to work anything with diabetes. Like, I'm done with this. But because of that, I'm always like very aware of what I'm eating. So I kind of already eat like that. But other people are like, and I eat one thing at a time anyway. Like I'm just that person. People are like, why do you eat like that? I'm like, I don't know. That's just who I am. But it kind of works in my advantage to eat like that. And I do notice a difference. With, if I eat the carb first, I tend to eat faster. I tend to be hungrier later. But if I reverse it and I make sure that I eat the protein first or I eat the vegetable first, I really do see a true difference. So definitely what you're talking about, I've experienced it. So I know it is a real thing, and I think it really does make a difference, especially those that are dealing with like insulin issues across the board.
Yeah.
Because it really is just a balancing thing.
We try to make things simple and not difficult. So it's simple again, may not be as easy as you want it to be depending on where you're at, but
it's like conscious thinking.
yeah. And it's simple, you can do it yourself. It doesn't cost you any money. I like that.
Yeah, no, it's great. She also did something with like vinegar too, like taking a supplement, like taking a like very small. It was like I think a teaspoon of vinegar to water, so it's not something that's going to ruin your teeth or like cause you acid or anything really. And to like really can make a difference before you eat something that's like heavy carb, like cake, or if you're going, it's the holidays, we're all eating not the most healthy. Like most people are eating very healthier this time of year. It
does help your digestion, the apple cider vinegar before the meal.
Yeah. So, like those small things I think are super important. So I did want to talk a little bit about, since you've been here in Ocala since, how long have you been here? I already told me, but I don't
About 25 years, I think.
25 years. Okay, yeah, so you're pretty Ocala, and you've really seen like the growth and difference here in Marion County.
Most definitely. My parents moved down here about 10 to 15 years before me, and I witnessed the widening of 200. I was here when it was just a 2-lane road, and there was literally nothing between 75 and top of the world. So the growth is exponential. The growth of the villages is exponential. But I think it's amazing. I think there's been some amazing developments in the area. We have a lot of good things to go see. And I love the centrality of Ocala. We like to go to St. Augustine. We like to go to Daytona. My mom used to go to New Smyrna Beach all the time. That was a very easy drive. The West Coast for the beaches over there are amazing. Gainesville, it's just so, Tampa's close. It's just so central that I think it's an ideal place, honestly.
No, I think Ocala is very unique in that way, and it provides a level of, I don't know, variety that you just don't get when you live in other places. Because if you live in Orlando, everything's there, so I guess you stay there all the time, but that does leave a level of, I think, me personally, I would get bored. I kind of like that in Ocala I have the option to go to Jacksonville, I have the option to go to St. Augustine, I have the option to go, to Tampa, Crystal River, whatever, and there's just so many like really cool little hot spots and places to go. So I think that's like the beauty of it.
The trails are really nice. We have the Greenway, access to all these things that I've moved from Indianapolis. Nice up there too, but now we have basically probably at least 10 months out of the year that you can go any time of the day you want. Go to the trails, go to the springs, all these things that don't exist anywhere else. It's a very nice, I like this area.
No, I love it. And I know with all the construction, a lot of people are worried that we're going to lose it, but it really is being put all in one specific little area. I know it seems, I was just driving out on the north side of town, and like there's some changes, but nothing too extreme. It's kind of the same old, and that's what's nice about it. I can go to the Fort King district and drive near downtown, and it's just Ocala, it's like what people love about it.
And we still have a downtown.
We do.
That gets decorated. It's really nice, and it's got activities on the square. We have a downtown market every Saturday morning. Yeah, there's nice small town feel to it still. I like that.
Yeah, and I'm hoping we don't lose it. I think it's going to be interesting because Marion County is so large, and I see it becoming similar to Jacksonville because that's where I went to UNF, so I lived in Jacksonville for 2 years. And I see it becoming kind of similar, and in parts of Jacksonville, it can be very city, and it can be very, like, typical what you'd expect city life. But then there's also, like, those really cool little places that you can go to, and it just feels like old Florida to me. And I think that is magical, and I just really hope we sustain that, because I think it's special. So how's it been owning a business here in Ocala and kind of seeing the change?
We have grown. I started out as a sole practitioner. I'm staying a sole practitioner. I kind of like it that way. We don't seem to experience the snowbird effect like a lot of other offices seem to.
Okay.
Not sure why. It's been great. I've been able to morph more into the functional side and the integrative side. And do a little bit less traditional, so now I can do more the 30-minute appointments. Population-wise, I'm seeing people just that are from all areas of the country moving to Ocala and then seeking that alternative aspect. But no, it's been nice. I've been part of the Chamber of Commerce, I've been part of BNI. There are networking groups. It's just a nice environment that has never really let me down.
Yeah, no, and I'm really happy to hear that. I think, I've been interviewing a lot of people lately, and I have a mixture of people. I have people like yourself that have been here a long time, and then I have people who are brand new, and they're just starting their practices here. And, I'm excited to see all the awesome, cool people that are coming in with functional medicine and regular medicine and, different businesses, whether it be food or eyelashes or whatever the case may be. It is just really wonderful to see, like, the growth of Marion County and getting to see, I don't know, people's talent shine, and us getting those really nice services so we don't have to drive to Orlando or Tampa or
Correct.
Yeah, or Gainesville even to get those things that we really should just be able to find here. So I think that's super awesome. Now, so do you have any big goals of 2025? We're right here at it coming up.
2025, we are transitioning part of our office. We're transitioning to more of an online presence with what I call a hybrid program, which will be videotaped lessons, and you will be able to access those on your own, and weekly Q&As that will be live, and then in-person individual visits with me like once a month. So it's going to be about blood sugar management, not necessarily diabetes. We have a lot of young people with insulin issues and not diabetes. But to help people navigate this kind of on their own terms that don't necessarily want to keep coming into the office, but it would be something you can do at home at 10:30 at night. You can watch a video, a lesson, something I might talk about at the office. And then Q&A, because everyone's got questions. And you can submit questions, you can come in. So that's my goal for next year, is to have this hybrid program to help the masses. And then I'm able to, in the office, do the hand-holding and the individual care and do more of the hormone management in the office and help those people.
Which I think you're kind of doing like the ideal situation in some ways too, because like if you catch somebody like myself who's 26, there's still some room there to like not keep that perpetuation and like to stop it and to heal it and to like there's more time to kind of do some correction across the board, where somebody who's coming to you at 45 or 50 or 60, and you said you even have patients that are 80 years old. I mean, the damage is kind of done, and so it's kind of more of like keeping them at a stable state, and that requires a lot more hand-holding. And also I think they're they're kind of set in their ways a little bit, and they're also they're probably not as tech savvy as somebody who's my age, but is aware that there's an issue and we need to fix it. So I think that's a wonderful idea and super different. I think more people are going to go that way.
I think people just want to do it on their own time.
Yeah.
I have people from all over Florida. I do a lot of autoimmune issues too, and some of that is telemed only from South Florida. So these are things that anyone in Florida can take part in and do on their own, but they will learn these little tips and tricks that are simple, but no one's taught them, and they haven't gone out and read the books to learn them. So yeah, I want to help the whole up and coming generation to not have the chronic illnesses that are going to happen if we don't. Autoimmune, once you get your first one, you'll get your second and third. And I want to stop that. And by doing these types of programs, hopefully I can hit those people and help them understand how that got into place and how it could perpetuate. But yeah, I want you to be able to take control of your own life. That's the whole goal here.
Yeah, no, I think it's important, and I think for us to be sustainable across the board, we have to really take responsibility for our own actions, our own things, and if we as a culture and society want to be sustainable, I think across the board, whether it's with our health or food or with this, that, or whatever, we really need to kind of wake up and realize, hey, I need to be responsible. Doctors can't fix it. It's not an easy fix. Unfortunately, generations before us allowed things to happen, and we kind of just have to clean it up. And it's unfortunate, and it shouldn't fall on that. But I have hope that my age group and some things that are going on, negative views on food dye and minimal, like there's been some minimal changes, and while people are like, nothing's really going to happen that big, and I'm like, it's the little changes. Like you don't realize the amount of effect that has on the older age groups, when, you know, our people in power are talking about those things. It's the small things that really cause a shift in society, because that's we have the control as the consumer. You know, I think people forget that. If we don't buy it, they don't make it.
And that's true. We do have a lot of control, but we also have a lot of pressure.
Yes.
And the societal pressure is what we need to help people manage and deal with, because we aren't taught that type of thing at home.
Yeah.
And then you succumb to, oh, it's just a little bit, it'll be okay. But how we teach people how to overcome that and be strong.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's not easy, you know, to say no to those things, and there are days that I'm very hungry because I didn't pack lunch, or I didn't do that. You know, I'm busy. I don't. Sometimes those things just don't happen, and I have to be like, you know what? I'm gonna grab me a bottle of water. Not eating's not gonna kill me, and I'll just eat when I get home. And you know, maybe I'll eat at some weird times. Maybe that's not always ideal, and that may not all be perfect, but it's definitely better than eating the gluten or whatever else I can't have and killing myself low key. You know, that just isn't an idea of a good time. So towards the end of my podcast, what I always ask everybody is, what would you tell somebody who's looking to do what you do, especially as somebody who I feel like has really seen a big shift in culture change, health. You know, I really applaud people like yourself, because I think you really have caused this perpetual motion to where my age group is at now. So I'm very intrigued to see what your answer is to something like to this question.
I basically got into this because I had the same problems. And I think that's the impetus for most people who are doing natural type cares, homeopathy, aromatherapy, you know, all types of things like that. We got into it because we were trying to fix something. So pursuing education and just learning, getting a mentor maybe. But it's a lot of education on your own part, doing certifications on your own part, because this is not what I was taught in school. Definitely not. And then going to the dietitian, things that I'm not an expert on, I will go to a dietitian if I need someone to help with that matter. You know where my limitations are, but I also know that there's just a lot that I have learned over 25 years of education. So just seek out the sources and start. As soon as there's something you have a question about, do the deep research on it, and little by little it builds.
No, I think that's, I mean, you know, for somebody like yourself, it just takes a lot of education and time and trial and error of what, because I think each cycle of people that you deal with, you're going to have something different that you have to do. You know, as somebody who was in, you know, in the medical field, medical school, I mean, I was not a doctor, but I still was in like around those people anyway. A lot of them get really stuck on the whole, the book says X, the book says X. And then, you know, like I remember like my professors who are dietitians presently and were, you know, had been for years, and they were like, look, like you need to be prepared, because there is going to be a level of, you just gotta figure it out, because not everybody's different, everybody's shaped different, everybody's got something different going on with them. And the book doesn't always tell you.
No, it's the basics, but you have to know where to go for the information. That's a lot of it too. But the curiosity, the exploration, the things we've talked about today, take one of those and just go do research on it. The MTHFR is a great one because, as you said, there's two different avenues. One is more cardiovascular, one is more B12. And if you have it, you need to be a little more aware of these lifestyle shifts. So just take one aspect and delve into it, and then take another one and kind of go stepwise.
Do you have any like recommendations on a book that you like, or maybe a podcast, or a specific person?
Not one in particular. There's quite a few out there.
Okay.
And I think it's great to just listen to the podcast. I think it, again, will spur questions, spur interest, and you'll be like, okay, what does that mean? And I think the curiosity aspect is the biggest part.
And you're kind of having that bug to learn more. I think you're always learning, right? I would say
Most definitely. I'm still learning. 38 years later, still learning.
I know, because there's been a lot of changes in healthcare in general, especially when it comes to genetics. That kind of opened a whole Pandora's box of like nutrigenomics and like where nutrition affects your genomes and all. I mean, like it got real complicated real fast, and I kind of got to see that really interesting transition because they had mapped DNA and everything like while I was in college. So it went. So cool. I kind of saw that like shift in healthcare as I kind of went through my classes, and it started becoming more of a topic. And you know, by the time I graduated, I could have got a master's degree in nutrigenomics, and that was a brand new thing, and it was hot, and everybody was talking about it. super cool and interesting. I really love DNA. I love like I like that sector of science. I love it. Very interesting and cool. So I was all about it. So I think it's interesting. But I think
you've had the curiosity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just am that person. But I think that's because I was around it a lot as a kid. You know, when you're around healthcare and all of that, it kind of just was like, what are they doing? Why are they doing it? So I think that's super important, and I think you really hit on the head with like find what you're curious about, whatever it is, and to run with it. And that's like the beauty of it, because if you don't love what you do, then what's the point?
Correct. And it takes the whole village.
I love that about you too.
Yeah, I need the acupuncturist, I need the massage therapist, I need the person who does essential oils, I need the homeopathy, I need the dietitian. I'm not an expert in those fields, they are. I know my area, and I know it quite well, but I can't do everything, and I don't intend to do everything.
No, and I think that's probably why you've been successful at it, because you realize that you need supportive people to bring along with you. And because like I say, and I truly believe this, there is no successful person by themselves. You had a team behind you at some point doing what you're doing, whether it was a mentor, whether it was a colleague, whatever the case is, that you came together and you built whatever you're building.
Correct.
So I think that's important that you realize that, because there's a lot of healthcare professionals out there who would do the dietitian's job and see them as not important. You know, that's a big thing. They love to pick on the dietitian. We're just useless. I can just use AI. I can just do this. I can just do that. I'm like, yeah, but you don't realize how complicated it can be for a lot of people, especially when you start getting into like all those DNA things we talked about.
And the two people in the same family that have different interests. That's a huge, we need to work with the whole family. We need to work with the people and see them as individuals and unique. And that's where the functional integrative world is. And that's what makes you happy, and you can go live your life if we work with you guys. Yeah,
because I think it's truly like functional medicine, and not in the sense of like hippy dippy trippy functional medicine, but it's actually functional for your life. And like, you know, people have complicated lives. Life's not as easy as it used to be.
Correct.
So I think that's important. I think what you're doing is great, and you provide a really, you know, a solid perspective to those people who really just need somebody to listen to them and to provide that functional way of life, because life's crazy. You know, we can't do everything. Was there anything you wanted to add before we wrap it up?
No, I appreciate this opportunity. Thank you very much.
Of course, it was my pleasure, Debra. So if you guys check back next week for another amazing episode with another great guest. I love people like Debra who have done their specialty for a long time. It makes these episodes really fun. So again, check back next week. Thanks so much.